and E and need not commute with each other. So these are the the new terms that are introduced by Dirac and with certain conditions. And then again, the second order differential equation has been formed. And finally, when we write the alpha and beta in the matrix form, or the entire Dirac equation in the matrix form, then we found out that these alphas and betas are n by n matrix. And there are certain conditions laid to them, like they should be Hermitian, and therefore we could solve, and the Hamiltonian is Hermitian as well as the matrix is also Hermitian. And to solve this Kleene Gordon equation, we put some conditions on them. Certain conditions are actually anti-commutator conditions. And then we found out that to satisfy the Kleene Gordon equation or the Dirac equation, these matrix has to be 4 by 4 of the order of 4 by 4. So this is the least, n is equal to 4 is the least matrix component that we should have, which also satisfies the 4 spin component, or the components of the spin that we have defined from this Dirac equation. So after having that into mind, what we want is we try to define what is alpha and beta. And the alpha and beta are defined by this Pauli 2 by 2 spin matrices, and beta is defined by the 2 by 2 unitary matrix in this form. And this form is specially taken so that the Dirac equation can be solved. So this fits very well the Dirac equation in the solution part. So after going through this in this relativistic way, we then, after having the form of Dirac equation, we in a free particle, now we introduce the electromagnetic wave. And the interaction of the electromagnetic wave, due to the interaction of the electromagnetic wave, the vector potential and the scalar potential came into play, and therefore the momentum and energy also changed. And we put those change in, I mean, the momentum and energy forms due to the electromagnetic field in the Dirac equation, which, and then try to solve it. And we found out the Dirac Hamiltonian in the electromagnetic field. And while solving it, the Hamiltonian, we got the energy term, and then we defined that a 4 components spinor matrix chi can be expressed in a 2 component spinor, and then the solution becomes easier. And while doing that, we actually took the time independent and time dependent form. So we separated the two, and we took the time independent form. And this is the last two equations, the time independent form. And there are this equation, both of these equations have actually two spinors, chi and eta. And we tried to solve the chi and eta again based on certain conditions. So this is completely relativistic till this equation 7.35a. So next we introduce the central field. So till now it was, so first we introduced for the free particle, then we introduce the electromagnetic interaction, and now we introduce the central field. When we introduce the central field, there is only the potential term which remains and no vector term. So A is equal to 0 and phi is spherically symmetric. And there was a big deviation from the usual non-relativistic Schrodinger theory, is that in the non-relativistic Schrodinger theory, H, L square, the Hamiltonian, the orbital angular momentum square, they all commute with each other. But here in this Dirac theory, uh, this was not the case. So in Dirac theory, neither L or L square commute with Dirac Hamiltonian. And this is also true when we, so after introducing the orbital angular momentum, we again introduce the spin orbital angular momentum or spin angular momentum in the form of S. or capital sigma, where we also define this capital sigma as 4 by 4 matrix based on small sigma, and we also derive the spin angular momentum operator and the eigenvalues of that. And we found out that even in Dirac theory, even the capital S or the spin angular momentum operator, that also does not commute with the Dirac Hamiltonian. So both orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum do not commute. So when this is the case, then we try to introduce a new angular momentum operator, which is called as, we named as total angular momentum operator, which is sum of orbital and spin angular momentum operator J. So J is equal to L plus S, and we found out that J as well as J squared, they commute with the Dirac Hamiltonian, and therefore we got eigenvalues like J plus 1, H bar square, and MJZ, depends upon whether it's a J square or it's a J3, which is also equivalent to Jz, depending upon the magnetic field or the quantization axis. And we
Sir,
got the eigenvalues. Yes.
in historically, which is the first experiment to find out that there is a fine structure in the atom? I mean, in what spectroscopy? Which spectroscopy experiment?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. But see, mm, once we study fine structure, let us actually. I don't know whether we have any numbers. Oh, we probably have any numbers. Okay. So when we get the numbers, see, sometimes let us do a little bit research on that on our own before actually finding out Wikipedia. Because you will ask me the question, I will immediately go in the Wikipedia because there's possibly nothing in the book. But we shouldn't do like that. So we go to the fine structure, we see some numbers, and we translate them to electron volt or say spectroscopy centimeter inverse. If this is a spectroscopy thing, so EV is not usually measured. EV will be measured if we are finding out the ionization things. So ionization energy and something like that. But in spectroscopy, either it is in wavelength scale, lambda, or it will be centimeter inverse, which is a very good unit for spectroscopist. Okay. So first see
Yes,
what
sir.
is the separation, what is the difference. Then we find out that whether that difference or the separation can be in the optical range or not. So there are two things. One, the transition is in optical range or not, and the second thing is that what is the amount of change in wavelength. So that, and then whether that amount of change in wavelength can be handled by a spectrometer or not. What is the minimum resolution of a spectrometer, and whether it is optical or whether it is radio or whether it is microwave, that the absolute number will tell us, the absolute unit will tell us, and the separation will tell us whether that separation can be measured or not by that method, because it will anyway be in that same range or in the same scale, whether it is optical or IR or mid IR or ultraviolet. Okay, then try to answer your question. So we, instead of just going by the history, let's find out whether if we are given such a condition that theory is ready now, आप measure करके दो कि ये सही है कि नहीं, then how will I start? Okay,
Okay.
what instrument should I use? So better we go that way. So that is kind of investigating something unknown. It doesn't matter whether it has been investigated 60 70 years back or 100 years back. So it, that is the way actually what uh, we should have an intuition about. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So if you ask me that कैसे measure किया था, पता नहीं है, पर वो विकिपीडिया देखने से बेहतर है कि हम देखें कि उसका रेंज क्या है, सेपरेशन क्या है. Then we can see the spectroscopy and then we can see whether that resolution matches or not, whether we can measure. Now we go back to theory. We can go back and see exactly how it is done. Usually books don't say the experimental history. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So total angular momentum is now clear, right? Till now it
Yeah.
is clear. So I'm just rushing and brushing things, previous things. Okay, so till now it is fine. So I can go forward.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So now we went to the from the relativistic limit, we went to the non-relativistic limit, and we defined the energy E dash in the non-relativistic limit, which is defined as E is equal to E dash plus mc square. And in equation 7.35a, those are two lower equations. We tried to solve the psi and eta in the non-relativistic limit, and therefore we can rearrange the equation based on E is equal to E dash plus mc square. And since it is a non-relativistic limit, we took an assumption that E dash and q phi are small in comparison to mc square, and therefore we can ignore the small numbers, and therefore we got a form of eta which is like 7.45. And we see that eta is smaller by a factor of p by mc, or v by c, where v is the magnitude of velocity with respect to psi. So we have two this spinors which we have defined, the two component spinors psi and eta are known as large and small components. This is just the name that has been given. So after we define this non-relativistic limit, now instead of finding E, which is the relativistic energy, we are trying to find out E dash, which is the non-relativistic energy. So this comes to the Pauli's equation, where we tried to solve this E dash, and then while solving this, we actually took help of an identity, which is given below. And yes, I guess you have all checked. I think somebody, Chauhan, has sent me a paper where he has solved this identity to get to these equations, right? So have you all done it, or have you all checked how he has done?
Yeah, it is easy actually, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So
So we can do one component just and just check it for the others and just add it up. So it is clear.
he did that. So Sifshant, thank you for because working it out, sending it to me. And now after having this, what is your name? Shiv Shant, right?
Yes,
Uh,
sir. That shape which is Shant.
Shiv Shant. Okay. शिव को शांत कर दिया. अरे बाप रे. You know, there is another name for the Shiv. Since my name is also Shankar, I tried to find out what are the other meanings that goes with it. So
Yes,
it
sir. My name
says
is
like
also.
the Shant part is the Shiv, and you know the what is the non-Shant part? That is the other name, Rudra.
Sir, my
So
my name is also Shankar with the middle name, of course.
yes, you- so yes, so if it is the Shant part, then it should be Shiv, and if it is the agree part, then you can be Rudra. Anyway,
Sir, he never
so
angry to anyone.
yeah, you haven't made him angry. Anybody can be angry. You just have to know how to make him angry. Better not to make Shiva angry.
That's right.
So, so yes. So we went to this Pauli's equation. We solved for this equation in the non-relativistic limit, and then while solving it using this identity, we also defined the magnetic field A cross A, and therefore we got something very nice, that is the dot product between the sigma and B. And after having these terms, we introduce the uh, so this is different from the say non-relativistic part of the Klein-Gordon equation. is that now we can predict an interaction between the external magnetic field and the spin, which is defined here as S is equal to psi dash sigma by 2. So here there is actually a disclaimer. You probably have read that, because there are two things we have defined. So when we are defining the Dirac equation, four component, then we are defining the spin as, so this is just a nomenclature. So here in C, in the Dirac equation, it's a 4 by 4 matrix. We are defining S is equal to H dash by 2 into capital sigma. Okay, capital sigma have three components, and it's a 4 by 4 matrix. So this is for a 4 by 4 matrix form for a Dirac equation where we have the spin as a 4 component. But the same thing,
Sir, S
yeah,
is actually not actually that only the spin. This actually an operator which are called helicity operator
okay, okay,
that we studied in relativistic quantum mechanics.
okay, yes, it
It's
can be
not true.
helicity. Why do you, I mean, is it a polarization dependence on this, or
Something
it's
like
just the spin?
left-handed polarization, right-handed polarization. I mean, for the neutrino part, we know that the neutrino only comes with the right-handed neutrino, and the left-handed antineutrino is only present. So that's
Mhm.
something it deals with this helicity operator, which is not a good quantum number.
Okay, okay, okay. That is nice to know. I sometimes get so funny things. Can you see this slide?
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes, but not in full mode.
Some now softwares are too smart. They it goes on telling me you are presenting to everyone. अरे बाबा मुझे पता है you are presenting to everyone. Now shut up. Ah, he thinks like people are idiots like them. अबे जाओ भाई. Ah, right. I can't get the button of having it in the full mode. So yes. So what Bhavani has said, this is also a helicity operator, which probably it's an. I mean, depending upon how you use it later on. So because
It's just a polarization that you said. I mean, if it is left hand, then it is spinning left-handed.
yes, yes.
Left-handed means if we look from the top, it will like clockwise. Right-handed means if you look from the top, it is anti-clockwise. Like that.
So this is
Sorry, sorry,
o-
clockwise. I
okay,
don't think.
okay,
Left-handed means clockwise. Right-handed means anti-clockwise. Yes.
okay, okay. And it is still the 4 by 4 matrix form.
Yeah. Yes.
Aha, okay. 4 by 4 matrix form and having an eigenvalue of plus minus half.
Yes.
So nice to know actually. But this is okay. This is in the Dirac equation. This S is defined as in this form. But when we are having a two component spinor form in the Pauli equation, so then you see like over, I'm lost. Yes, in the Pauli's equation, this is defined as S is equal to H bar sigma by 2. Okay. So this is not in 4 by 4 matrix form. So there is some important note over here. So we recall that the spin operator S is equal to H bar sigma capital sigma by 2 introduced in 7.38 acts as a four component Dirac wave function. And in order to simplify the notation, we also denote S as the spin operator H bar sigma by 2 acting on two component Pauli wave function. So just this note is just because so that you don't get confused. So it is the same S, the spin operator, but in two different form it is given. Either it is 4 by 4 matrix in Dirac equation, uh, or a two component matrix in Pauli's equation. So and then we go on solving this Pauli's equation, where we take q as the electron, and then after solving this equation, so the left hand term of the equation, it actually defines the interaction ms dot b, that is the interaction between magnetic field b and the intrinsic magnetic moment ms of the electron due to its spin. So this is the first time that the spin and the interaction of the magnetic field is defined, and something as the something as the magnetic intrinsic magnetic moment of an electron is also defined. And this is defined, as you can see here, ms is equal to minus mu b sigma. So this is how the spin sigma is related to mu s with the Bohr magnetron, and then sigma is related to the spin operator s in this form, and therefore we define something as spin gyromagnetic ratio there. And we see that the spin gyromagnetic ratio with takes the form, so ms, which is the intrinsic magnetic moment of the electron, takes the form as like this, minus gs e by m
Sir,
s.
sir, sir,
Yeah,
sir, what I told you is wrong.
yeah.
Actually, the helicity operator is basically that sigma, something that you have um, wrote in the last page. I mean, previous one, from the previous one, not this one. You wrote something sigma. Huh? This one dot p that he is written. It was written. Sorry. Some projection operator. So some sigma h is defined as s dot p by p vector. I mean mod measures the longitudinal component of the spin of the particle or the projection of the spin along the direction of motion. This is known as helicity operator, and this actually commutes with the Hamiltonian,
With the Dirac Hamiltonian.
Dirac Hamiltonian, which is h equal to alpha dot p equal plus beta m, where I put c equal to 1.
Okay, and what is p?
P is the momentum, sir. P is the momentum
Okay, okay,
in the direction of motion that we said as the momentum.
okay, okay.
And also the eigenvalues of helicity operator is also plus or minus h cross by 2.
Okay, okay. Okay, fine. So this is not the S is not, it is S dot P.
Yes, sir.
Okay, which actually commutes with Dirac Hamiltonian.
That helicity operator s
The
h dot,
helicity operator. Yes.
because if I commute s with h, you can see in the, I mean the bottom right, h s commute is not zero, it's not commuting. I am
Yes.
giving as IH cross C alpha cross P. Now, if I multiply S with P,
Hmm.
then H has P, and that other equation is also have P. So that's what happening.
Okay. Okay. So okay, we come back to our equation 7.49, and therefore we defined something in from the Dirac theory. Uh, the particle can there exists an intrinsic magnetic moment for the electron, and Dirac theory also gave essentially its correct value, ms is equal to minus e by ms, apart from very small corrections coming out from quantum electrodynamics. So these corrections are beyond our scope, beyond our this syllabus scope. They are very small, but it does give the almost actual value, or this gives the correct value for the intrinsic magnetic moment. So why I'm stressing this, because in the next in so see when we I think I don't know the dates, but the spectroscopy have actually predicted that there was a spin associated with the electron even before the quantum mechanics came into the picture. So But there was one confusion because they could predict that, but there has to be some basis. So they came to know about it completely from empirical ways, from classical mechanics, that what will happen if a spin goes around the uh, current carrying wire. So we will do all those things while we define the while we go for the fine structure. But there was a two's missing, so a term 2 was missing. So this, they put this 2 just to match with the experimental observation, but they didn't know where this 2 is coming. So it is just after the working out of Dirac, after the relativistic Schrodinger equation came into the picture, and the Dirac picture came into the picture, came into this Dirac theory came, and it solved exactly. And then directly from uh, the other factors like the Bohr magnetron and the others, which was already known from quantum mechanics, this derivation for this gyromagnetic ratio, or you can actually say that the exact value of the spin was known. Before that, it was only a prediction that there was a 2 ka chakkar, but it was not like that from Dirac theory. So this is also, I mean, you can say the one of the success of Dirac theory, that it could get the value of the spin exactly, or the value of the gyromagnetic ratio exactly. So here we can see like that we have, so this comes to a point that yes, the electron will have an intrinsic magnetic moment which will interact with the magnetic moment of the electromagnetic wave. So after having that, so this is the lowest order in V by C that we have worked out. Okay, so here we see that the Dirac theory is equivalent to two component Pauli's theory. Now, so yeah, so this is 7.49, which is the Pauli's equation or the Pauli's theory. And now we introduce our investigate the higher order correction. So this is just the uh, zero level correction that you know. And now we introduce the higher order corrections in v square by c square term. And for that, instead of having a central field, now we are putting in the exact values of the Coulomb field of the nucleus. So Coulomb field of the nucleus is also a central field, but slowly we are going towards solving our hydrogen atom problem. So here in this case also, for a central field, A is equal to, so the vector potential is 0, and the scalar potential we can define q phi as E phi because it is an electron, and which is also the potential Vr. So therefore now we define the Coulomb field of the nucleus as minus Ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 r. And we see that the Dirac equation can be solved exactly in that case. So here it just says like that we go till the correction of v square by c square, which is needed for our fine structure effects, but the higher corrections we are ignoring in our derivation, or in fact we are ignoring in the complete in your syllabus at least. And therefore we return back to the set of equations 7.44. So we return back to our set of equation which defines the non-relativistic limit to the energy E dash. So here we are getting psi and eta values, and we have also got the eta value in this form at 7.45. So here we are doing two changes. First is that instead of this q phi, we now have the potential form, and for the electron for a Coulomb field of the nucleus. So therefore we can directly put those terms over here, and you see like eta r is equal to E dash plus 2 mc square minus Vr, and C minus I h bar sigma dot grad psi r. Okay, so we directly got that, and then we substituted this eta form in E dash psi r. We got this c square I h bar sigma dot grad, and 1 by e dash plus 2 mc square minus vr I h bar sigma dot grad psi plus vr psi. So what we did actually, we got this form from 7.44b. Let's just go back once. So can you, anybody can just check, work out on a piece of paper. Just write these two equations.
Sir, which one? For A, for B.
Yeah, both of them. Just copy both of them. It's actually a rearrangement, and then we will try to see that we can reach that equation or not.
Okay, sir. Wait just minute. Yes, sir. I did. I did. A7 for A, for B.
Okay. Now just check whether you reach here or not. It's probably just a little bit of rearrangement. So instead of having minus q phi, so q phi we can define as vr, and we rearrange and get the vr on the other side and just have this. And then put the this eta value into 7.44a and get the other one. Just you don't have to work out. You I mean, just by intuition you can make out. Just check and tell me whether it is correct.
Yeah, okay, sir. Once again. Yes, I got that A752, which is C. I think I can show you. Is it is it visible? So this was the, there is etar and there is etar. Just take it on the left side and divisible. Minus delta. Okay, there is a QA some term is there. Why I'm getting QA term?
No, qa term you will get because a is equal to 0, so you can ignore the qa term.
Acha, okay, so then it
That's
is,
a central field, Coulomb field, so that's why.
yeah, then there is a delta and this is a sigma. So this is correct. Then we have to substitute back in this one, the above equation, this thing.
Yes.
Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, so we have to find just the E prime psi r, right?
Hello.
So we have to find just that E prime and psi r. E prime and psi r, though we have to do. Okay, 1 second. Sir, I got it.
Okay.
Should I show you?
Yeah, you can show to anybody.
Sir?
Hello.
Sir, should I show you?
Yes, sure.
Okay, can you see? So this one I got
Yes.
for the eta r, and this
Yes.
was my first equation where I put so this one. So again I put
Hmm.
this thing like this, and
Yes.
as I wanted to find out just the E prime psi r, so I just take this one as the outside. So I got this thing. E prime psi r c square something like this, and plus v r psi r.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
It is exact in that way.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So I think in the equation it is sigma dot delta, but as it is a dot product, so it doesn't matter. We can of
Okay.
course. Is it all right, sir?
Yeah, fine. So everybody else can follow, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, then we can move on.
Fine. So now what we do is that we got something as in the denominator E dash plus 2 mc square minus Vr, and now we expand this denominator in powers of E dash minus Vr by 2 mc square. Okay, and we have to go to the lowest order. Now E dash plus 2 mc square, so 1 by E dash plus 2 mc square minus Vr, that we can write as 1 by 2 mc square 1 minus E dash minus Vr by 2 mc square.
This is only possible if 2mc square is very high compared to E prime minus VR.
Yeah, I guess that is I guess implied. Okay, because we are
And
working in the non-relativistic limit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
And
Yes, yes.
Yes, and that you can now, after assuming in this form in the non-relativistic limit, so just taking the powers and just this first two terms, and we can put this back in the earlier equation, and therefore we got this equation 7.55. So you can just check and see whether that matches. So in the 7 point back in 7.53, so just in the 7.53, just this term e 1 by e dash plus 2 mc square minus vr, this is replaced by 1 by 2 mc square 1 minus e dash minus vr by 2 mc square, and the rest will remain like that.
Sir, one second.
Yes.
Okay, so there is a problem. E prime psi r um, minus h cross square by 2m. Where that come from? C square there is there. Okay, let me show you. Okay, so you can see this one, right? E prime psi r c square I h cross that delta dot sigma, same thing, then 1 by 2 mc square. So I just, from here, I just took it this as 1 by 2 mc square, 1 minus E prime minus V of r by 2 mc square plus V r psi r. Then what to do? I mean, where that minus h cross square is something that came in. I mean, this one can be, I can write as a square because it's basically the same thing. And of course, minus h cross square will came because I
No,
into I
no.
is
See,
minus 1.
you see there is a p term came, no?
There is a p term
Ah,
came.
vr. Wait. No, no, no.
Not
There
money.
is a. I think there is a grad
That,
form that is came.
uh, yeah.
Minus I h chorus. Where does this v, another v came? Oh. mm,
So as it is in the minus h cross square by 2m, it is not multiplied with c square. So I guess the second term
Hmm.
which is multiplication with that 1 by 2 mc square from the A754. So that is mhm, 1 minus e square. No, I don't think A755 is correct. Some problem is there. I think that should be minus h cross square by 2m only because c square is cutting out, right? A750 is, I don't think that it is correct. Um, See, for the reason is that is the following. Mm, So when there should be multiplication with 1, and there should be e prime, otherwise 1 minus e prime by 2 m square. E prime a delta delta dot vr delta dot yeah. Sir, can you go back the last one,
Mm-hmm.
please? 1 second. The last line. Okay. There is a shy over here. Okay, there is a shy over here. Okay. There should be a shy over here. That should be something to do with this thing. Um, okay, I think we have to solve A753 a little bit. Um, same way, so I think the thing, the
Yes,
identity.
I think you have to play with the VR shy form and rearrange that.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, because in the second term, I think it is multiplied with the 1 by 2 mc square in A754. That's why I got minus h cross square by 4m square c square.
Mm-hmm.
In this way only I can do that. And there is a VR and psi R multiplication. That means there is a, delta dot sigma, two sigmas are there, right? So one is multiplied with the psi, one is multiplied with the v, but I'm still sure that A755 what is written over here is not correct. Because there is a sigma dot delta square. One is there again. How it is there? Minus some sort of. Did we use some identity? I mean, how they did it? Sir, in the next equation, is he used the same A755? I mean, in the same form, 1 minus e prime minus vi by 2 mc square in the forward.
Yes. Yes. In the next one, he has used this identity, but not,
No,
I
no,
don't
in the
think, in the
next
earlier
equation.
one.
In the next equation after A755, is he used the same, I mean, same way that 1 minus e prime minus vr by 2 mc square? I mean, just forward, just for one step forward, the slide. No, sir, it was backward. The forward. I mean, how A756, I mean, the other ways look like. Yes, sir, one forward, sir. One forward. Yeah, 1 second.
No, this is after you have that.
Yeah, that's why I'm just checking that is he used the same thing, same way or not. But he used same thing. Yeah, he used same thing.
It may be, yeah. It may be in this to get the 7.55. He has used that identity, no? Because sigma dot. So here there are two from minus I h bar sigma dot grad, and then again I h bar sigma dot grad. So that is a square term.
Exactly, exactly. That is a square term. That was I'm saying, and that should be multiplied with the psi r. And sir, what I think is that maybe by expanding 1 by e prime plus 2 mc square minus vr, so we take it out 1 by 2 mc square and 1 minus e prime minus vr by 2 mc square again.
Huh?
I think that one term is multiplied with the first term. That's why it is just giving us, um, because c square is cutted. I mean, the first in A755, right? If we compare it A755, you can see that only minus h cross square by 2m is there, because
Hmm.
c square is cut by that c square in the previous we have multiplication with the I h cross sigma delta. In the
Yes.
A753
Yes.
there is a c square, right? So that
Yes.
c square is cutted. But
Yes.
in the second equation, we didn't, because we multiplied that c square, because we have
Yes.
4m square c square, right? So I think there is some catch over there, which I am not, I don't know what is happening. Mm.
Wait a minute. This is, I think, what happened is
I
there is
got
a
it.
multiplication of the first term with, I mean, there is two times it's a multiplication.
Sir, it's from Branston Joachim book, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Shipshan, can you check this one? You have Branston Joachim in your room. Or should I go over his room or check? Uh, how this is second? हाँ बोलो. तो सुरेंद्र साहब, कैन यू प्लीज
मैं
चेक?
मेरे को सेंड नहीं किया यार तूने।
नहीं नहीं, बुक हम लाइब्रेरी से उठा के लेके आए थे, हार्ड कॉपी.
मेरे पास नहीं यार।
तो किसके पास है?
मेरे पास तो लिंक का है और कोई दूसरा बुक है, वो नहीं है।
हम्म, okay,
The
let
whole
me do
point is
that.
how did he get the second term, right?
Ah, yes sir, yes sir. C square, C square, there is a minus s cross square, and there is a 2m c square, and there is a uh, sigma dot delta square, and 1 minus e prime minus v of r by 2 mc square psi of r plus vr psi of r. Mm, so this c square cancel, minus s cross square by 2m sigma dot delta square 1 minus e prime minus v of r by 2mc square psi of r plus vr psi of r. Mhm. Ah, acha, acha, okay. Oh, got it, sir. Actually, he is correct. A750. Actually, let me
Hmm.
show you. So, okay. So, can you see the bottom line?
Yes.
So, I have here minus s cross square by 2m. That is sigma dot delta square, and that term 1 minus e prime minus v of r by 2mc square into psi of r plus vr psi r. Sir, actually, it is dot product because there is a delta, right?
Hmm.
I think this is a dot product actually. There is a one term and there is another term. So you have VR which can be differentiated, and there is a psi r which can be differentiated, right?
Okay.
So from that actually he got that A755.
But is it not like included in the first term itself?
Mm, no, because in the first term he just operated this one with only that one,
Yes.
keeping out this thing. In the second part, second term, he
Hmm.
actually multiplied this thing with this thing. I mean, this one with this one. So when we operate this thing with one, it becomes zero, right?
Yes.
Then sigma dot delta square is operated with e prime minus Vr by 2mc square, and E prime is also always constant
Yes,
energy.
yes.
That is also 0. So what we are left with is that that minus and that minus becomes positive, and it operates with that Vr and 2mc square, and that's how we got the second term. And of course the Vr psi r is
Okay. So in the square, he actually, if you take only one of them out and operate with the entire thing. So
yes sir.
actually, sigma dot grad is an operator which operates on the full thing
Yeah,
again. And then we got this grad v,
yes sir.
right?
Yeah.
This is a very smart way of doing. I mean, if you can just miss it because if you don't think the gradient to be an operator,
Of course gradient is an operator.
yeah. Okay, okay. Now it is clear, I guess.
Yes sir.
Okay, fine. Is it clear for everyone? Hello. Yeah. So all of you can follow, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, ठीक है. Okay. Okay. This is nice actually to work it out. And then, yes. So using this identity that we defined earlier. So using that, we got sigma dot grad square to be grad square, and the other term on the so the second term we got as sigma dot grad v into sigma dot grad psi is equal to grad v dot grad psi, and then the rest of the terms. So this we can write directly using that identity which is given below. And since VR is spherically symmetric, so first is that sigma dot grad whole square is equal to grad square. That is quite easy to know. You can work it out.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
And the other one, the second 7.56, this is a little tricky. So let us see how we work it out. So first of all, we expand that in terms of this identity, and then VR is spherically symmetric. So we can write grad V at del V by del R with a vector R, and grad V dot grad sigma is equal to del V by del R, and then dV by dr, and
Yeah, because r cap
ADR of
dot r
sigma.
cap is 1.
Sorry?
R cap dot r cap is 1.
Yes, R
That
power.
is
Yeah.
there.
Yes. So we can write in this form, and therefore we can have the, so this is actually the first term, and for the second term of 7.56, this we can write an I sigma dot grad v cross product of grad psi is minus 2 by h bar square 1 by r dv by dr. And see, here we have, you have a little tricky way. If we can define L is equal to r cross p or r cross minus h bar square grad, that we can put here, because we have a minus I, if we like introduce minus I h bar grad, this we can do as L, and then S we know as h bar sigma by 2, which we can put as S operator. So we can define the L operator and the S operator and psi. So this I would say like check once more.
Sir,
So
1 second. Sir, previous slide, please. Okay, so V something used V in terms of L or Psi in terms of S. How we did that? Um,
Yes, that is the point.
L dot S into Psi. Okay, so S he said L. Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
L he said is R cross minus IH cross delta, and S is S cross delta by 2.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
sigma got
one
absorbed in S.
second. One second. So we have here minus 2 by h cross square, 1 by r dv dr L dot s into psi. So L here is r cross minus I cross delta, and this is h cross delta by 2. Okay, sir, one second, I got it.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, so here minus, you have minus 2 by h cross square, 1 by r dv by dr, something like that. So h cross cancel out, that cancel out. 2 also cancel out. So 1 by r dv dr, r cross, um, there is a minus I. Okay, let's see, minus I. And there is a delta, delta dot sigma. And there is a psi. dvdr dvdr can be, I think, written as, mhm. Okay, sir, I got up to this. In the last one, minus I, there is a minus I, 1 by r dvdr, r cross, that, again gradient dot delta psi. So that I got. So I think some rearrangement of this thing will give us what we wanted.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, another one minute, please. Sir, please, that next slide, please. Okay, one second. Yeah, one second. Yes, sir, I got it.
Okay.
Uh, from here, this one. This one I can write like this. Then that r cape by there is r vector over here that becomes r cape. Then just rearranging, I got this I delta, sorry, sigma dot grad v cross grad psi. This,
Yes.
right, sir?
Yes. I think it is right.
So it's just the vector identity that comes confusion. That's if it is good, then yes, correct. So I think we
Okay.
should
So
move forward.
so
Yeah.
everybody agrees. Hello. So can everybody see Bhavani's board?
Yes, sir.
We will
Okay.
go in his room and we will see.
Surendra is very quiet nowadays. At least today.
Because the Cavalier is gone, I think his best friend. That's why maybe.
नहीं
But
सर, ऐसे ही थोड़ी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है.
अच्छा अच्छा.
Okay, so I think we should move forward. I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This was easy, but the earlier one, this is deriving 7.5, 7.55. This was confusing. We missed the gradient part. So it has to be operated on this and then we can get this. So this was a little tricky. This one I think was easier. So
Ah,
okay,
yeah.
now we can collect the various terms and you can see here. So it was a minus h bar square by 2m grad square plus vr term. Then there is a term of e dash minus vr by 2mc square grad square. So see, these are two grad square terms. And then there is a term of L dot S, as well as there is a term which is dv by dr and ddr of psi r. So we can write obviously this the grad square term in terms of p. So p is equal to minus h bar square grad is equal to gradient is equal to e dash minus vr. We can write as p square by 2m. Okay,
Yes,
and
sir. Actually,
then
we used just the for the A759, just the Schrodinger equations. E prime minus BR, um, because he write as like this: P square by 2m
yes,
psi plus Vr psi r equal to E prime psi r, something like that. From that, he actually, I think, did that. Okay, should I do that? It will take half a minute.
yeah, sure, you can do that.
Okay, sir. So this is what it is written in the left hand side. So this is my Schrodinger equations. I just took Vr psi r from left side to right hand side. So this is what I got. So
Yes.
E prime minus Vr I can write as P square by 2m. So I just put it over here. So as you can see, it was 2mc square. So again, 2m I should write, right? 2m.
Hmm.
So I got h cross square del square p square by 2m 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 8m cube, and there is a c square. And what is p square is basically minus h cross square delta square, so I can write as p square. So I got minus p fourth 8m q c square.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah. So what we actually got is that we after getting this form of 7.38. So the first term over here, or this you can say the third term over here, which is minus p to the power 4 by 8 m cube c square, and this is a relativistic correction in the order of v square by c square to the kinetic energy term minus h bar square grad square by 2m. So which is like p square by 2m term. So which is the first term. So this is a correction, relativistic correction to the kinetic energy term. And the fourth term, so the second term is the potential energy term, and the fourth term is something very new, which is the spin orbit interaction, okay, which is also of the order of v square by c square times the potential energy Vr. So spin orbit term and multiplied by the potential energy Vr with that. And the interesting term is the last term, which is a relativistic correction to the potential energy, and this is non-Hermitian. So you see here that the last term, this is a relativistic correction to potential energy because this is dV by dr. So the fourth term is also a correction with the potential energy term because it has a dV by dr term, but the last term is a relativistic correction which is non-Hermitian. So Darwin came up with a solution that
That
how
actually Darwin term.
yeah, that is the Darwin term obviously, and he came up with a solution that if we can replace the last term with the symmetric combination, which is symmetric combination means we make this, actually we break it down to half and half and put one of them as the Hermitian, and then we can solve for it by making it Hermitian, and finally what we get is h bar square by 8 m square c square and grad square Vr. So this is his tricky contribution. And now grad square Vr we can expand by taking for one electron atom, that is the we know the potential minus Ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 r. And since it is a potential of a central field potential or a Coulomb potential, then grad square V will have a delta function. This probably you also have done. This is a very uh, you can say common question in interview boards, that what will be this kind of a form. Okay, so it's a delta function, and therefore the Darwin term comes out to be h bar square by 8 m square c square grad square Vr as pi h bar square by 2 m square c square Ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 and delta r. From that, it is seen that it contributes only to the energy of the L is equal to 0 state. So can you follow this page?
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, what we finally found out is a real hydrogen atom. And all, if we combine all the above results, we can write down the final form of the wave equation for one electron atoms or ions, or hydrogen like ions, hydrogen atom like ions, where we include all the relativistic correction through v square by c square order. Therefore, we can write h psi is equal to e dash psi, where the Hamiltonian you can write as p square by 2m plus Vr minus p to the power 4 by 8m cube c square plus 1 by 2m square c square 1 by r dv by dr L dot s plus pi h dash square by 2m square c square Z square by 4 pi epsilon 0 delta r. which all comes from this one. Okay, and you can check the equation 7.61. Okay, this I guess I mean, just by looking at it, is it fine with you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we finally got the relativistic correction, which is also known as the fine structure correction for the hydrogen like atoms, where the main source of so the main contribution here, or the main source of, you can say, enhancement, or you can say the main source of uh, corrections are from three different sources. Is like, one is relativistic correction to kinetic energy, one coupling between the spin and the orbit degrees of freedom, and another term which is known as the Darwin term. And we finally see like what is this Darwin term. So this is like just what is, so this is the way that how the relativistic quantum mechanics or the Dirac theory finally came out with a solution of a real hydrogen atom problem where the fine structure corrections are included. Okay, now we will go more detail into the fine structure correction and see like what is the uh, what is the order of these corrections and how significant they are. So I'll go in a different presentation. You want to take a break, or it is fine if I continue?
It's fine, sir.
Okay. So let us go a little bit backwards and see like what we have learned till now. So we have seen that the quantum mechanics of hydrogen atom or hydrogen like atom is characterized by a large degeneracy, which is like in multiplets of n square fold degeneracy. I guess you remember this is the like
Yeah, yeah,
the notes from the first chapter. Okay, so we have n square fold degeneracy, where for a non-relativistic Hamiltonian we define as p square by 2m plus Vr, where Vr is a Coulomb potential, Ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 r. Now this gives an useful platform, or this gives a gross or the basic spectrum, but there has to be several corrections added to that, which we studied in the last lecture, which is derived from different sources, and the main source is the relativistic correction to kinetic energy and the spin orbit coupling. So in broad terms, the effects are considered can be grouped into internal properties of the nucleus, that is the spin orbit coupling and the Darwin term, and the relativistic corrections to the kinetic energy. So, and what else did we learn from this hydrogen atom? We first learned that this is a centrally symmetric potential, where we can write the Schrodinger equation of the form psi, which depends on Lm, as capital R and Ylm. So the radial part and the spherical harmonic functions Ylm. So we can write these into the radial part and the angular part, where the angular part is spherical harmonics Ylm, depends on spherical polar coordinates, and R, which is a function of small r, is the radial component of wave function. And by solving this, the radial wave function, we got a radial quantum number n, capital N, which is greater than equal to 0. And then in case of Coulomb potential, after we put the limitations on the expansion, the Taylor expansion, we found that the energy depends on principal quantum number, which is small n, equal to capital N plus L plus 1, which has to be 1 or more than 1. Okay, so it is not, the energy does not depend on capital N and L separately, but it depends upon small n, which is capital N plus L plus 1. This also you remember, right?
yes.
Yeah. Later on we will see like how we can separate on the L actually. but till now it depends. The energy depends on the small n only, the principal quantum number. And then we define the for the hydrogen atom we define the energy levels of the Hamiltonian in a very simple way. If we can write that in terms of Rydberg constant Ry, so En is equal to minus Ry by n square. So the energy depends on 1 by n square value, where we can define Ry in this form, which is equal to 1/2 of mc square alpha square, right? Which depends on the Bohr radius a0, 4 pi epsilon 0 by e square h bar square by m. And alpha we can define as the fine structure constant, which is e square by 4 pi epsilon 0 1 by h bar c. So this is also clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Or if you can actually go back and you can work it out, these type of forms or these type of relationships are you should always have this in your mind, because in interviews usually people don't ask to derive energy shift and something like that, which is long derivation. They will only ask you question which you can solve in 2-3 minutes, and the first 3 questions are definitely such as this. Okay, so you should have these kind of small calculations in your mind. I guess in your jest and net examination also such kind of small questions are usually asked, right?
Yes, sir. There are many, what we can say, modern and good questions are came from hydrogen atom itself, and
Yes,
it's a very good concept.
yes. We also do the same. Like hydrogen atom is a very, see, after having quantum mechanics, I mean reading the basics of the quantum mechanics and then finding out it, the first real life problem is an hydrogen atom, right? Then the scattering and the other part came. It is all focused on hydrogen atom only, and then the extension of the hydrogen atom to finer details, uh, to finer spectrum, or anything more than that, are the different interaction with the fields with the hydrogen atom. But to start with, this hydrogen atom was the most basic, where everybody concentrated on. And so if you understand the hydrogen atom or the hydrogen like atoms very well, then I guess you can extend those ideas to multi electron systems and later on into complicated systems itself. But this is the cleanest system, and even now people do research, a lot of experimental research on hydrogen atom. By the way, there is this is actually an experimental point of view, is that you cannot very easily do an experiment on hydrogen atom. You know why? हाइड्रोजन एटम के ऊपर एक्सपेरिमेंट करना बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि हाइड्रोजन एटम हर वक्त जब भी मिलेगा मॉलिक्यूल फॉर्म में मिलेगा.
Yes, sir.
तो अभी भी एक्सपेरिमेंट मतलब हाइड्रोजन एटम स्ट्रॉन्ग फील्ड फिजिक्स के साथ, माने स्ट्रॉन्ग लेजर फील्ड के साथ कैसे हाइड्रोजन एटम का पोटेंशियल चेंज होता है. आई एक्सप्लेन यू राइट, व्हेन यू हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग फील्ड, only then if the field of your interaction, or if your field of an electric field or electromagnetic field is strong enough, that it can manipulate the potential energy of the most basic atom. Because as you go higher and higher in your z numbers, the atom actually goes squeezing and squeezing, and the hydrogen atom is a single electron system. So whatever experiment or investigation you do is very clean and exactly solvable. So this is the best quantum system to investigate and to find out whether your theory is matching or not. Later on what happens is that there is electron electron interaction, and therefore the theory is not exactly solvable, and you have to take an average effect or a numerical solution kind of thing, uh, which you may not take on hydrogen atom. Therefore, for a spectroscopist, it is always nice to have hydrogen atom or hydrogen like atom. So many of the experiments which has been done with the accelerator is to create this kind of atom that you can see: helium plus, lithium 2 plus, Okay, so these are hydrogen like atom. So the spectroscopic lines that it will come is that if you consider the nuclear effect to be minimized, then the rest of the spectroscopy is very much like hydrogen atom. Therefore it's a very, like, hydrogen like ions is also a very nice candidate, a single electron atom. Same for the neutral. So these are charge spectroscopy, where you have to produce these kind of ions by the accelerator. And these experiments are actually also go, I mean, many places in the world, but in India, in TIFR and in Inter University Accelerator Center, these experiments are highly done. Very few people actually do them. Probably all of them has been exhausted, and rigorous theory is also done on that. So this is the best part of that. And to do, why single electron ions such as hydrogen like ions? Because doing an experiment on a neutral hydrogen atom is not very easy. First of all, how it is done is that you take hydrogen molecule, you will get abundance of hydrogen molecule, but not atom, because the bond is very strong, so you have to break the bond. So what people do is that they send this hydrogen molecules through a electric highly heated electric discharge tube kind of thing. So it's not a discharge tube, but it is very high heat. So due to this heat energy, uh, the bond is broken, and then the atoms that has been formed is very in a very unstable form. I mean, it doesn't exist for a long amount of time that you can store hydrogen atom for a long time. So you have to do the spectroscopy in that small amount of time where you have the hydrogen in an atomic form. And this is done in a previously used to done in a discharge tube. And now if you want to have a jet of a hydrogen atom, you have to send it through a high heated uh, nozzle or something like that, gas flow tube which is of very high temperature. Then you can break the bond, and then you can only get the hydrogen atom. So a few labs have done that, and it is very interesting. Okay, so this is just to
There is a upcoming accelerator facility called FAIR. Uh,
yes,
they used a target material as a gold,
yes,
and they also use some heavy ionized atoms to smash it. I mean,
yes,
let's see what they have happen is that there is a proton is coming, another proton is coming, and they collide. In FAIR, there is
yes,
a fixed target accelerator experiment. There is a fixed target of gold, and we have ions which is smashing on it, and we are seeing the pions and mesons and other things. For that, it should be ionized, right? The I mean the particle by which will we smash the target atom. So in that process also they use that heating, ionization, all these things. I mean, in this process only, I mean, any accelerator system, if we are getting some ionized, highly ionized beam, so we will use that discharge sheet tube only, right?
no, no,
Or
no, no. Okay, okay. So you won't mind if I go a little bit more on experiments? बाकी लोगों का
yeah,
problem
I
है
got
नहीं ना?
the,
I will tell you how it is done, because I was involved in a few experiments in Inter University Accelerator Center. So क्या होता है कि this is called a thin foil spectroscopy. Very few people does that. It was one faculty who is retired, is Professor Tapan Nandi. He used to do that, and I was associated with him when I joined that lab. So for a project under him. So thin foil spectroscopy means you, from the accelerator you will not get every beam. So you may not get lithium 2 plus. You might get lithium beam or fully stripped lithium beam or whatever. You might get that. And then what you do is that you form thin foil of uh, gold. Okay, I don't remember now. I think silver foil we used to take, or of gold, or gold or silver we used to take, or carbon foil. Actually, not gold or silver. We used to take carbon foil, very thin, so it is on micron, and what is it is that you take a highly pure carbon in a small boat. So this is actually the tricks of target making. To do every nuclear physics experiment, you have to make a target. In fact, to do every condensed matter experiments also, you have to make a target, and then your measurement thing comes. And if you're I mean, if you go through the papers of the different condensed matter system, that they take 3 or 4 different material in different proportions, and then they produce say topological order, or they can produce some kind of material which has this special property or enhancement of a special property. So target making is a very important thing for both condensed matter, surface science, as well as nuclear physics. So what you do is that you take the very simple thing is that you take the carbon in a small boat or small copper container and send a very high current through that container, so that you produce vapors of that carbon, you produce soot. ठीक है, जैसे चिमनी से निकलता है, या हम जब खाना बनाते हैं मतलब वो खाना बनाने के लिए जो जलाते हैं ना चुल्लू, तो वहां से जो रोटी बेलने के लिए निकलता है, तो वो काला जो निकलता है धुआं, दैट इज अ कार्बन सूट. तो दिस इज द सेम
Yeah.
थिंग. तो प्योर कार्बन को हीट करेंगे तो उसमें वेपर निकलेगा, और ऊपर एक ग्लास प्लेट रहता है, एंड ऑन दैट ग्लास प्लेट these carbons go and they stick. So you don't put any gum or something, ये ऐसे ही stick हो जाते हैं ग्लास प्लेट के ऊपर. You cannot have any material making target because not everything will stick to the glass plate. ठीक है, आप जो भी चाहो वो चिपक गएगा नहीं. So there is a special property of gold, silver, carbon which can chipkao on the glass plate. Now what you do is that you on the glass plate you actually put from an angular side, you take a bowl of water, clean water, distilled water, and then slide that glass plate very slowly, so that whatever is chipkao on the glass plate will form as layers on the water. जैसे दूध के ऊपर जो उसको क्या बोलते हैं, जो
I don't know.
जो मलाई गिरता है
हाँ, yeah.
है ना, दूध के ऊपर जो जब दूध गर्म करो तो मलाई होता है, तो वैसे मलाई जैसा वो टारगेट रहता है. उसको हम एक छोटा छोटा करके एल्यूमिनियम का या स्टेनलेस स्टील का, वी हैव स्क्वायर शेप ऑफ, वी कॉल इट टारगेट होल्डर. क्या है कि इट्स अ स्क्वायर शेप एंड इट्स अ सर्कल एट द सेंटर. तो उसको लेके हम वो जो ऊपर जो जो कोटिंग तैर रहा है उसको हम उठा लेते हैं. वी जस्ट put that, we take it out very slowly, that coating on our target ladder, or you can say on our target chip. So what happens is that it's a square shape of, finally what we find, it is square shape of stainless steel piece, where we have 2 holes on the top to mount it, and a big hole, 1 centimeter big hole at the center, and that center hole is blocked by the coating of the copper. ओके, आई कैन, क्लास होता तो मैं दिखा देता कैसे होता है, बट यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड राइट.
Yeah, it is confusing, but little I understand.
या तुम मानो कि एक मैच बॉक्स है, मतलब मैच बॉक्स का साइज का तो नहीं है, उसका डायमेंशन कितना होगा, उसका डायमेंशन
Matchbox is hardly a length of would
नहीं,
be
उसका देखो टारगेट, जो टारगेट लैडर होता है दैट इज अ डायमेंशन ऑफ 2 सेंटीमीटर बाय 2 सेंटीमीटर. एक स्क्वायर स्टेनलेस स्टील पीस ले लो 2 सेंटीमीटर बाय 2 सेंटीमीटर, उसके बीच में एक छेद है 1 सेंटीमीटर डायमीटर, राइट.
okay. Gotcha. Okay,
और
then
जो मलाई, मतलब कार्बन का जो सेडिमेंट और जो मलाई वो जल मतलब पानी के ऊपर इट वाज फ्लोटिंग, दैट यू पिक इट अप by that 2 centimeter stainless steel piece,
yeah. Okay.
rectangular piece. So at the
Okay.
center 1 centimeter diameter piece, that hole is completely covered by that thin layer of carbon which was floating on water.
Okay.
Okay, अब इसको लगा दो चेम्बर के अंदर. इट इज सो थिन दैट इवन we, I mean, we used to hold our breath, because अब सांस ले लोगे तो फट जाएगा, because it is a single layer of carbon, not double layer, single layer of carbon. और उसको माउंट करना पड़ता है एक्सेलेरेटर फिजिक्स और न्यूक्लियर फिजिक्स मतलब थ्योरी करना जितना आसान है एक्सपेरिमेंट करना उतना ही कठिन. उसको ले जाना पड़ेगा. उसको एक चेम्बर है, जिस चेम्बर मतलब एक स्टेनलेस स्टील का कंटेनर जिसको वैक्यूम में डालना पड़ेगा. सो यू हैव टू टेक आउट एयर ऑफ एटलीस्ट 8 ऑर्डर और 9 ऑर्डर ऑफ मैग्नीट्यूड. पहले टारगेट को अपने लगाना पड़ेगा, उसको सील करना पड़ेगा. द एंटायर चेम्बर विल बी सील्ड एंड देन यू डू नॉट नो अबाउट वैक्यूम टेक्निक. If you know, then there are pumps which takes out the air by 8 or 9 orders of magnitude. So from 1000 millibar, which is the atmosphere, we take out to minus 6 millibar, 10 to the power minus 6 millibar. ये करने के बाद then we have an accelerator beam which comes out, and then it goes through that carbon foil. While going through the carbon foil, what happens is that the atoms of the other electrons from an atom, while going through that carbon foil, gets stripped off. So मानो कि you are taking a beam which is like oxygen, okay, but you are taking a beam of oxygen 3 plus or 4 plus. You cannot have an neutral oxygen beam through an accelerator, because what will it accelerate? It will accelerate the charge.
Yeah, because for accelerating we will use electric field, right? So if it
Exactly.
is neutral particle, it won't affect that thing.
Yes, but not necessarily that you will have hydrogen like oxygen, that is oxygen 7 plus. You will probably have oxygen 3 plus or oxygen 4 plus. That is the most abundant beam. So you also have to remember about the beam current. If you don't have current, then you don't have signal, right? So you have to think about current, and while having good current but not hydrogen like oxygen, so you take out say oxygen 3 plus beam to certain energy, say 50 milli electron volt, and then you take it through this foil. When it goes through the foil, all the other electrons are stripped out. Then you get the distribution of either oxygen completely stripped, so oxygen 8 plus, 7 plus, 6 plus, and all those things. Now, whenever this oxygen, after getting stripped off to oxygen 6 plus, 7 plus, and 8 plus, the inertial electrons are completely stripped out. So, therefore, if it is oxygen 7 plus, there will be only one electron which can do any transition to the inner shell. And when it does the transition, you will get X rays. So, either you can get X rays or you can get a visible spectrum and all those things. Then, after having like those X rays and those spectrum, uh, it's not a gamma ray, but you will have X-ray, high energy X-ray or low energy X-rays. Usually it is X-rays. Then from that spectrum, you can find out by the theory of what is the different states it has got populated. So this is how the experiments on single electron ions or hydrogen-like ions are done. It's called beam foil spectroscopy. So it's a beam foil. So it's a foil and the beam passes through the foil, and after passing through the foil, all the electrons or most of the electrons are get stripped off, and after passing through the foil there are forward moving X-ray spectrometers. And since there's a the X-rays, the spectrum that will come will also have Doppler effect in it, because while the it is emitting the X-rays, the ion is also moving, right?
Yes,
So you
yes.
have,
So it will broaden the spectrum.
yeah, it will broaden the spectrum. So you have to convolute with the Doppler, you have to remove the Doppler and then analyze the spectrum, and then you can do theory on that. So it's not very easy to do such kind of experiments, but people have done that. This is one of the uh, very important factors after accelerators came to do beam foil spectroscopy. अभी तो कोई शायद नहीं करता है, या कुछ कुछ रशियन लैब में करता होगा, but people have all done those things, so it is not too much of new things are there, and the theory is also extremely developed. तो अभी शायद कोई नहीं करता है, okay, but people used to do like that. So this is just to tell you a flavor of how experiments are done with single hydrogen like single electron ions. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, when we meet, I can explain you better. When we go to the accelerator lab, then I can actually tell you that how the accelerator beams are made. Other than that, you have absolutely no feeling. वो पिक्चर सन का पिक्चर देख के कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा कि एक्चुअली होता
नहीं
क्या
सर,
है.
बिल्कुल नहीं. So well, we used to, sir, you remember there was this Vigyan Samagam in the last year.
Yes.
So we actually, six of us
Yeah.
are part of FAIR. So we
Yes.
were
Yes.
volunteering FAIR. So we just got some little knowledge that how these accelerators works, and how we can cool these things up, and how these I mean data centers are works. I mean huge and huge amounts of data are coming from that. That is something called I don't know uh, what it is called. There is some green chamber, green building is there. Something called. There are some. I mean large collection of hard disk are there. What it is called, sir? What is that? I mean we are used to store the data, that chips.
That I guess you are talking about. Uh, I actually don't know.
Cluster, cluster.
Cluster.
So there
Cluster
are
can be data storage, and cluster can also, I mean, cluster can also be for multi-core systems where you analyze that data. So there are two things. That is how fast you can analyze the data and how much you can store. So cluster means whenever you hear about that somebody has a cluster, doesn't mean that he has a lot of data. It also means that how fast he can analyze. So cluster is a name given to multi-core system, you can say.
yes, sir. Along with that, we have seen the UNILAC, which is a universal linear accelerator,
Exactly.
and there is also CIS, which is I think synchrotron, which is I mean circular accelerator,
Yes, these are all
where we
in
use
Darmstadt, right?
magnetic field as well as the quadrupole field for focusing
Yes,
and bending.
yes, yes.
So we just got just a little idea, not much. And we are also
Yeah,
seeing
that is
that
good.
superconductivity things are also working on that because of heat resistance. I mean, or
Yes, the whole problem is that if you want to see, a magnet will turn an ion, right? If you want to get in a circular motion or if you want to bend the beam, you have to use a magnet,
yeah,
first of
type.
all, the dipole magnet. And if the energy is low, then you can use an electrostatic magnet. I mean, all the focusing elements can be electrostatic, but if the energy is high, you have to put a stronger amount of field in the quadrupole field. You have to have a stronger amount of field in the dipole magnet. You have to have stronger fields, and it is the engineering point of view that comes into the play. As a designer or as a physicist, we can put in any fields. We can say, अरे इसको 10 टेस्ला दे दो, 10 टेस्ला दे दो, 20 टेस्ला दे दो, 100 टेस्ला दे दो. And it is usually, the thing is that when the development such kind of lab works, you will find that the scientists, number of scientists there is one third, 25% or 20%. The rest of the people are engineers, because this 100 Tesla, to generate that, the engineers will give you 100 reasons of why it is not possible with your design. So they will design you and they will tell you that how can I cool the system. The magnet will quench, it will not run. The amount of heat generated, you have to disperse it, which you cannot do by just normal water. You have to pull chilled water, and then at some point of time it might come that you cannot even do it with the chilled water, so you have to go to superconducting magnets. You have to run in liquid nitrogen and liquid hydrogen to keep them cool. So the technical aspect becomes very high, and therefore why this CERN machine is a complete cryogenic system is because the energy which the ions go, it's just protons, but the energy which the proton runs in a TeV, tera electron volt, and to bend those tera electron volt and to bend it effectively. And there are many other issues, like if you have a bunch of protons, okay, the protons will repel with each other, and therefore your beam will not be in a spot. Your beam will actually go haywire. सब प्रोटॉन एक दूसरे के साथ रिपेल करके एक दूसरे के दूर दूर चला जाएगा, तो तुमका बीम कहाँ मिलेगा. तो इसीलिए you have to have focusing elements, you have to have high energy or high field focusing elements, and this gives the requirement that you have to cool it down because your entire thing will burn out, and therefore you need the cryogenics to cool it down. So the entire beamline is actually a donut inside liquid helium.
Ah, okay.
Okay, now you understand, you can get relation to that. So this technological aspect increases the price and increases the difficulty of doing such experiments. And therefore it's not only one nation but the entire world is investing money into that. All the governments are investing money into that, and there are so big companies which can make. You can't make these things in the lab. There are hundreds of cryogenic things that you have to make, thousands of them, and therefore the company comes in and they charge you money and then they develop. Okay, so this is how it goes on.
Yes, sir.
So, and after doing all these things, then the interaction happen, and after interaction you get tons of data which you have to store, which you have to, and I not only store, being in Bose Institute you have to get that data. You cannot go to CERN and do the analysis. You have to get that data. To get that data you need high speed internet system and also storage facilities. So that's the other end of it. After getting data, what will you do? You have to have software which can access the data and uh, analyze and reverse back. So they had this root system, the root system that has been developed on Linux based thing. So this can handle bigger data chunks that you can analyze and put it back. You have cloud servers, so you cannot have a wired system or internet system to bring that data. So you have cloud servers. Cloud servers means the data may not be in that location itself because it might get destroyed one location. So you distribute that data. It's called distributed data handling systems. So in 20 computers, this data, parts of that data is actually spread out in 20 or 30 computers. So even if for some reason 5 of the computers or 3 of the computers get destroyed, the entire data can be regenerated from the rest 27 of them.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So this is how the data backup is given. So that's the data part. The accelerator part, the data acquisition part, or the detector part, and then the data handling part. These are huge efforts. And CERN has given us many things, unique things, because nowhere, I mean, people have thought of doing such like you can say giant giant form of science, and the money is also there. So, but fair is not in CERN. Fair is in Darmstadt,
Germany.
in Germany, in Darmstadt. It's a very nice accelerator, big nice accelerator lab. But there also the problem is that it's going on for many years. I was also
Yeah.
involved in one of
Yeah.
the projects.
Timeline is 2025, 2026, like that.
It is getting more and more. So the good part is that there, what happens that which I'm telling you, like helium plus or lithium 2 plus, hydrogen like, you can have uranium 91 plus. So it will be a hydrogen like uranium. That is, you can say, extreme of atomic spectroscopy. Okay, and every ion. So what happens is that if you take away electrons from an atom, what is left here, the, I mean, what is left, the ion, what is left behind, will this, since there is loss of electron from the atom, this is stored as the potential energy of the atom. Okay, and what is the strength of that potential energy? Is like if you have lithium 2 plus or helium plus, you know the ionization potential, how does it change for a helium ionization and for helium plus ionization. Okay, so the ionization factor will change because the nucleus is still the same. Now think about the ionization, the factor of ionization change if you have a uranium 91 plus or uranium 92 plus, fully stripped uranium. It has a huge potential energy in terms of ionization, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's extremely highly, like, uh, you can say, highly exotic system devoid of electrons, and those systems are, you can say, like the extreme of atomic physics. In you can say beam foil, it's not a beam foil, but I guess you might have a beam foil kind of thing. I mean, other than that, I do not know how will they produce such species. But yes, the world has gone, I mean, you have to have extreme facilities to get such kind of things, and that is one of their plans. Okay, so yes, if you get involved in such kind of studies, then you will know the other extreme of atomic physics, or you can know the other extreme of hydrogen like atoms. So this is why the hydrogen like atom and the hydrogen atom itself is so important to study. And the point is that even, I mean, even having such exotic systems, probably you can match the experiment with theory most accurately. Right? You can go to extreme fields or extreme potential in an ion, and still you can work out the theory based on a simple hydrogen atom. So you can test your extreme theories with that. See, this is important. Physics is an observational science and a fact finding science. So you can go any sort of exoticness in your theory and get some numbers out. But whether those numbers have any meaning in the practical world or not, you have to, at not every time you won't get the opportunity every time, but at few times or some time you have to go back and match with the experiment, that whether my theory, how good is my theory, or how good are my assumptions working out with the real world system. And then some theories are thrown out, some theories are taken, and some theories are like partially matched. And since easier things are all done, and you can go any limit in the theory will not have a limit on what you can do and what you cannot do, because it's everything is computational and numbers. But then, as we say, like junk in and junk out, whether whatever we are giving or whatever we are getting is junk or not, you have to verify that. And sometimes verification is easy, sometimes verification is beyond our control, and we have to have systems like CERN, ALICE, or CMS, or FAIR to test our extreme theories. But the experiments are also in that sense is extreme. So you might develop your theory for the last 50 years, but those theory might stand or those theory might be thrown away depending upon one single experiment. Okay, my kid came and asking me questions now. Class. ठीक है.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is all deviation. अभी तो क्लास शायद कितना बजा भाई, 12 बज गए, अब मुझे इंस्टीट्यूट भी जाना है. Anyway, so I will go a little bit further. So this was a deviation half an hour. I like to discuss with these kind of experiments so that you get interested in doing that. Why are we learning physics? We can do so many things in our life, but we have came to do MSc, and then we want to do research, we want to do a PhD. But first we have to have a very clean outlook, a broader outlook of what we want to do. In the second year of your PhD or your third year of your PhD, you are already in it. So this is the best time that you should have these outlooks, and you should know what is going on all over the world, not only in India, and choose and find out your interest point. It's not the coursework which is important always. It is also important that you know where your research is, because the coursework तो 1920 1930 में खत्म हो जाता है. आफ्टर दैट मॉडर्न एटॉमिक फिजिक्स क्या होता है, मॉडर्न कंडेंस मैटर फिजिक्स, मॉडर्न न्यूक्लियर फिजिक्स क्या होता है ना. तो बेस जैसे
Yeah.
चाहिए उतना ही चाहिए कि हम अगर रिसर्च करें तो ये इस पे तो रिसर्च नहीं करेंगे. रिसर्च कहाँ पे हो रहा है, वो क्या है, तो ये जरूरी है to decide what you want to do later in your life if you want to stay in your research line. है ना? ओके, चलो. Yes, so we can write this Bohr radius in this form 1 by z. Okay, and the electron can be given in this form as it is given at the bottom, minus Ze square by n square. Here, for hydrogen like atoms, you can write the energy in this form, which is also equal to minus 1 by 2n square mc square z alpha square. This is clear, right?
Yeah.
हाँ, कोई कोई तो सो गया होगा यार.